My name's Lisa. I'm 19 now, but this story started when I was 17 and completely convinced I'd found my soulmate. His name was Ben. At least, that's what I thought. We met online in the most cliché way ever, through a comment thread on some indie band's Instagram post. He messaged me after I replied to a fan theory he'd posted. It was cute. He said I was smart. I remember blushing in my bedroom, staring at my phone like it was something sacred. It wasn't just that he was hot, though he was. Or that he liked the same music and shows and weird memes as me, though he totally did. It was how he saw me. Or at least, it felt like that. We started texting every day. Within a week we were calling, FaceTiming, though oddly, his camera wasn't working half the time, and sending each other voice notes. His voice was deep, calm. Something about it made me feel safe. Even though I'd never met him in person, it started to feel like we'd known each other forever. It wasn't long before we were official. I told my closest friends, but not everyone. I didn't think my parents would take a long-distance online thing seriously, and to be honest, part of me wanted to keep it just for me. Ben lived 2 states away and said he was applying to colleges near me. I was over the moon. We started making plans to meet. He was going to visit me over spring break. I was counting down the days. I bought a new outfit. I imagined our first hug, our first kiss. I was nervous, but so excited. I even practiced how I'd introduce him to my cousin Kate, who I lived with part-time. Kate was like a sister to me. We were the same age, but she was always more outgoing, more confident, more everything. She knew about Ben, of course. She teased me about being so whipped, but also said she was happy I'd found someone who made me feel good about myself. That meant a lot coming from her. But then spring break came. And Ben didn't. 2 days before he was supposed to arrive, he messaged saying his dad got sick and he couldn't leave. I was crushed, but I tried to be understanding. He called me crying that night. He said he felt like he was letting me down. I told him it was okay. That I'd wait. That we'd see each other soon. But things started to get weird. Subtle at first. He became more distant. Sometimes he'd disappear for hours, even days, and when I'd ask, he'd say he was going through stuff. That he didn't want to dump it on me. I kept trying to be patient. Supportive. But the doubts were creeping in. Meanwhile, Kate was acting weird too. She'd ask strangely specific questions about Ben, like what kind of photos he sent me or what exactly he'd said during calls. Once, I caught her staring at my phone when a message popped up from him. When I asked her what was up, she just shrugged and changed the subject. One night, she joked, "What if Ben isn't even real?" And I laughed a little too loudly. But in my gut, something twisted. I'd never actually seen him on a clear video call. His photos, though consistent, were all very Model Y, filtered. I'd never questioned it before. Why would I? I wanted to believe so badly. But that night, I started digging. I reverse image searched one of the pictures Ben had sent me. My heart dropped. The photo belonged to a completely different guy. An influencer. With over 100K followers. I felt like I was going to throw up. My hands were shaking. My ears were ringing. I couldn't breathe. I messaged Ben immediately, demanding an explanation. He didn't respond. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not even after I spammed him with voicemails and messages saying I knew. That's when something inside me cracked. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to know the truth and fast. So I did the one thing I hadn't before. I logged into my old backup Instagram, a fake one I'd made years ago to stalk my ex's new girlfriend. Don't judge me, I was 15. I used it to follow Ben. Then I messaged him, pretending to be someone else. A random girl saying she thought he was cute. He responded. Fast. Like, within 10 minutes. He flirted. Sent a winky face. Said he was single. That was all the confirmation I needed. He was fake. A liar. A scam. My whole body went cold. But then something even weirder happened. I checked the message timestamps. They lined up exactly with when Kate had gone for a walk earlier that afternoon. A thought flickered in my brain, stupid, crazy, paranoid. But it wouldn't leave me alone. What if it wasn't just some stranger catfishing me? What if it was someone I knew? Someone close. Too close. I know how it sounds, like something out of a bad teen movie. But once the suspicion took root, I couldn't shake it. I started replaying every conversation with Kate in my mind. Every time she'd smirk when I was gushing about Ben. Every little joke she made about him being too perfect. Every question she asked that, at the time, seemed normal, but now felt so pointed. So intentional. I tried to tell myself I was being dramatic. That I was just hurt and paranoid. But then I remembered something I'd completely brushed off before. A few weeks earlier, my laptop had gone missing for a whole day. I thought I'd left it at a friend's house, but the next morning it was sitting right on my desk. I asked Kate if she'd seen it, and she said no. But now I wondered, had she taken it? Had she used it? My stomach churned. I needed proof. I needed to be sure before I accused her of something this insane. So I got sneaky. I installed a keystroke tracker on my laptop. I know, not exactly ethical. But at this point, I felt like I was living in a psychological thriller and had no idea who I could trust. I also started leaving my phone out around her, screen unlocked, just to see if she'd go for it. And one night, she did. I pretended to fall asleep on the couch while watching Netflix. Left my phone on the coffee table, facing down. I cracked when I opened just enough to see her sit down beside it, glance over at me, then slowly pick it up. She opened my texts. Scrolled. Then opened Instagram. My heart was pounding so loud I thought she could hear it. I kept still. After maybe 2 minutes, she put the phone back and quietly left the room. The next morning, I opened the keystroke tracker logs on my laptop. Nothing conclusive. But I did see a familiar email address pop up in one of the logs. It was the same domain as the backup email I'd seen listed on Ben's fake Instagram. My vision blurred. That was it. That was the moment I knew. I confronted her that night. I didn't plan it, it just exploded out of me. "You're Ben, aren't you?" I said, standing in the kitchen while she poured herself tea like nothing had happened. Her face froze. It was so fast, but I saw it, the guilt, the shock, the panic. Then, just as fast, she tried to play it off. "What are you even talking about?" she laughed. "Are you okay?" But her hands were shaking. Her voice wavered. I wasn't okay. I was unraveling. I told her everything, the reverse image search, the messages from the fake account, the timing, the tracker. Her expression changed slowly, like a mask melting off. And then she said the 3 words that shattered me. "I'm so sorry." My knees buckled. I had to sit down. She started crying. Real, heavy sobs. She told me she didn't mean for it to go this far. That it started as a joke. That she just wanted to mess with me a little after I joked about how she'd never been in love. She said she made the account thinking I'd never fall for it. But then I did. And I fell hard. She said she didn't know how to stop once I got attached. That she felt guilty, but also special. "You told Ben things you never told me," she whispered, like that was some kind of excuse. "You told him you loved him." I couldn't even respond. I felt like my entire body had gone numb. My skin, my lungs, my brain, all frozen. "So you let me cry to you about him?" I finally said. "You let me break, thinking I wasn't enough for someone who didn't even exist?" She didn't answer. Just kept crying, saying how sorry she was. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just walked upstairs, shut my door, and collapsed onto my bed. I stayed there for hours, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out who I was even mad at her or myself. I'd fallen for a fantasy. A lie. I'd let my need for love blind me. And the worst part? I had trusted her more than anyone. She was my cousin. My best friend. My safe person. And she'd used that trust against me. For months. The next morning, I told my parents. They were horrified. My mom called Kate's mom. There was yelling. Crying. Kate left that night to stay with her dad. We didn't speak for days. I deleted everything, the messages, the photos, the voice notes. I didn't want a single trace of Ben left in my life. But erasing the account didn't erase the damage. People talk about getting catfished by strangers. But no one prepares you for when it's someone who shared your bathroom, your family dinners, your secrets. And even though I had the truth now, the worst part was, this story wasn't over. Because a week later, I found something on Kate's old iPad, and it made everything so much worse. I hadn't meant to go through Kate's stuff. I swear. But after everything that had happened, I needed closure. Real closure. And when I saw her old iPad, still plugged into the charger in our shared room, I just opened it. I don't even know what I was looking for. Maybe proof that I wasn't crazy. That she really was behind the whole Ben thing from the beginning. Maybe some kind of explanation. An apology she never sent. Or just answers. What I didn't expect to find was a folder on her notes app titled Ben Scripts. My heart dropped. I clicked it open. It was exactly what it sounded like. Full-on pre-written responses, monologues, flirty jokes. Even sad confessions. She had planned it all. It wasn't just improv or a silly prank gone too far. This was something she'd written, crafted, controlled. I scrolled and scrolled, feeling more sick with every line. There were notes on how to manipulate a conversation if I got suspicious. Phrases like, say your camera's broken again, and send audio but don't video call, blame anxiety. There was even a schedule. Dates and times she'd planned out responses to my messages, like it was some role-play project. My stomach turned. Then I saw another folder, this one titled L. My initial. I hesitated before opening it. But curiosity got the better of me. Inside were screenshots of my texts. Notes on what I'd said. How I reacted. Emotional patterns. Like she was studying me. Like I was a science experiment. One note read, Elle really believes he's real. She trusts him more than anyone. Be careful not to mess up the voice tone. Another one, if she says I love you again, delay responding. She'll spiral and beg. I dropped the iPad. Literally dropped it on the carpet and backed away like it had burned me. This wasn't just mean. This was twisted. She hadn't just catfished me. She'd manipulated my emotions like I was a puppet. And she kept notes on it. I couldn't stay in that house another second. I packed an overnight bag and went to my mom's. I didn't explain it first, I just said I needed to be away. I didn't want to relive it. I didn't want to explain how the girl who'd slept across the room from me for years had basically stalked my heart and played God with my feelings. But eventually, I broke down and told her everything. She was horrified. And furious. Not just at Kate, but at herself. For not seeing it. For letting us live together unsupervised. For trusting her niece like family. The next day, I got a text from Kate. A single line. I'm so sorry for everything. I'll leave you alone now. I didn't respond. What could I even say? It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But deep down, I knew I wanted more than an apology. I wanted her to understand what she'd taken from me. Because it wasn't just fake love. It was my sense of reality. My ability to trust. My belief that people in my life, people who loved me, wouldn't hurt me for fun. In the following weeks, I fell into a weird, blurry state. I deleted social media. I stopped answering messages. I couldn't even look at guys, real or not. Without flinching. My friends kept checking in, but I kept them out. I wasn't ready. It was like I'd been burned, and my skin hadn't grown back yet. I started therapy. At first, I couldn't even say the words out loud. My cousin catfished me and pretended to be my boyfriend for 7 months. It sounded fake. Like I was making it up. But slowly, session by session, I let the story out. And with every retelling, it became less of a nightmare and more of something that happened. Something real. Something I survived. Meanwhile, Kate stayed silent. No calls. No texts. No pop-ins. I thought she'd just vanished. But then, about 2 months later, I got a message request on my email. The name was unrecognizable. A random Gmail address. But the subject line read, I need you to know the full truth. I opened it, heart pounding. It was from Kate. But not like the teary cousin I remembered. This was calm. Calculated. Creepy. She said she wanted to explain her side because I never let her talk. She said I had made everything about me and never asked why she did it. I didn't even know what to think. She wrote that she felt invisible her whole life. That I got everything, the love, the attention, the sympathy. That I was the delicate one while she was always the strong one who had to be okay. She said pretending to be Ben was the only time she felt truly close to me. That when I told Ben I loved him, it was the first time she felt loved by me too. That messed me up. I couldn't breathe. She ended the email with, "I know I hurt you. But part of me still thinks you only loved me when I lied." I closed my laptop. I didn't reply. I couldn't. I wanted to scream. To cry. To rip that letter apart. Because how dare she twist this into some sob story about feeling unseen, when she deliberately made me fall in love with someone who didn't exist, someone she created. And then I realized something. She didn't write that to apologize. She wrote it to keep control. To stay inside my head. To keep the game going. But I was done playing. After that email from Kate, something inside me shut down. Not in a dramatic way, more like a quiet, final click of a lock. I wasn't going to let her inside my head anymore. I wasn't going to carry her hurt on top of my own. What she did wasn't about being unseen or unloved, it was about power. Control. And whatever she told herself to justify it didn't matter. I deserved better than that. So I blocked the email. Blocked every account that could possibly be hers. Even deleted a few apps I didn't want to look at anymore. I started fresh. Slowly. Quietly. I got back on social media with a private account. I reconnected with a few friends. I started saying yes to coffee invites and movie nights, even when I didn't feel 100% like myself. The truth is, I don't think there's a clean way to bounce back from something like this. It's not like one day I woke up and said, "Okay, I'm healed." But each day I chose to exist in the world without carrying shame for what happened. That was a tiny rebellion. A quiet form of strength. And one of those small rebellions? I joined a local creative writing group. I'd always loved writing as a kid, and my therapist gently suggested it might help me process things. At first, I hated it. Every time I tried to write, the only thing that came out was bitterness. But after a while, I started turning the pain into fiction. I made up characters who got hurt, but who fought back. Who got tricked, but found themselves. And writing those stories made me feel like maybe I could be one of them too. That's also where I met Eli. It was nothing like Ben. No butterflies, no obsessive texting, no late-night love bombs. Just a guy who sat next to me in the library room every Thursday and made quiet comments about my stories. At first, I barely noticed him. I was still skittish. Guarded. But he was patient. Kind. Real. We started getting coffee after group, then walking home together, then messaging here and there. He never pushed. Never made me feel like I owed him something. One night, he asked if I wanted to hear something he'd written, and when he read it out loud, I realized his hands were shaking. That's when I knew he wasn't trying to impress me. He was just showing up as himself. And suddenly, I wasn't afraid of that. One evening after group, we sat in the park while the sun was going down, and I told him the whole story. About Ben. About Kate. About how stupid I felt. How scared I was of trusting anyone again. I expected him to flinch. Or get weird. Or run. But he just said, "You weren't stupid. You were open." That's rare. I stared at him like he'd just told me the sky was purple. No one had said that before. Everyone else had said, "How did you not see it?" or "Wow, that's insane." But Eli? He didn't make me feel like a victim. Or a cautionary tale. Just a person who'd gone through something hard and was still here. We didn't jump into anything romantic. In fact, it took months before we even held hands. But I didn't mind. Because for the first time, I was learning how to be loved without being manipulated. How to feel seen without being studied. And that was everything. Meanwhile, Kate stayed out of my life. I heard through a family member that she dropped out of college for a semester and was in some kind of counseling program. I didn't care. That sounds harsh, but it's true. I didn't wish her well. I didn't wish her harm. I just didn't wish anything. I wanted space. Time. Distance. The thing no one tells you about betrayal is that it doesn't always end with revenge or confrontation or some grand closure. Sometimes it ends with silence. With choosing not to reply. With walking away without looking back. But one day, almost a year after it all happened, I did look back. Just once. Not at Kate. At me. I was scrolling through my Google Drive and found an old audio file, a voice message from Ben. I hovered over the delete button. But instead, I pressed play. His voice filled the room. Calm. Measured. Familiar. Hey, it said, just wanted to say I'm proud of you. I know things are hard, but you're doing amazing. It was one of the last things he'd sent. I sat there for a long time, listening. Not crying. Not breaking. Just breathing. And then I deleted it. Not out of anger. Not out of pain. But because I didn't need it anymore. Because I wasn't that girl anymore. I wasn't waiting for a voice on a phone to make me feel whole. I had my own voice now. And I was ready to use it. It's been almost 2 years now since I found out my long-distance boyfriend wasn't real. Since I realized my own cousin was behind the account. Since my entire idea of love, trust, and family got ripped apart and rebuilt from scratch. People always ask what I'd say to her now if I saw her again. And honestly, I don't know. Part of me wants to ask why, again, even though I already read her answer in that twisted email. Another part wants to tell her she didn't win. That despite everything, I still found my way forward. But mostly, I think I'd say nothing. Because silence is powerful. And sometimes the most healing thing you can do is just not engage. My life looks different now. I'm still figuring out who I am, not the version of me that needs to be perfect, or lovable, or good enough for anyone, just me. Raw. Honest. Complicated. Real. I journal more. I write stories that make people cry or laugh, or sometimes both. I walk away from conversations that don't feel safe. I say no without guilt. I say yes without fear. And Eli's still around. We're not perfect. We argue about dumb things like movie endings and who forgot to do laundry. But it's real. And kind. And mutual. Sometimes, when I tell him something vulnerable, I still flinch, waiting for judgment or mockery or the sharp sting of betrayal. But it never comes. Just quiet nods. Gentle hands. Safe eyes. I didn't think I'd ever feel safe with someone again, but here I am. Not because he saved me, but because I let myself be found. One day, I bumped into someone from high school who'd heard bits and pieces of what happened. She asked, kind of awkwardly, wait, weren't you the girl who dated, like, a fake guy or something? I smiled. Not fake nice. Just calm. And said, yeah, I was. But that's not the whole story. Because it's not. It's easy to reduce me to that headline, girl gets catfished by cousin. And sure, that's wild. But the bigger story is about what came after. About waking up in the middle of heartbreak and deciding to still care. Still risk. Still love. About not letting someone else's lies define your truth. I used to hate that version of me, the girl who fell for Ben. I'd look back and cringe. Judge her. But now I see her differently. She wasn't pathetic. She was hopeful. Brave enough to believe in connection. Open enough to love someone she'd never even met. And maybe that version of me got hurt. Deeply. But she also cracked something open that led me here, to this stronger, wiser, softer self. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. I know now that love without truth isn't love at all. That trust can be broken, but also rebuilt. And that sometimes, the person you need to trust the most is yourself. Not long ago, I got a message from Kate's mom. A short one. She said Kate was doing better. In therapy. Back at school. That she asked about me sometimes. I didn't respond. I probably won't. Because forgiveness isn't about letting someone back into your life. Sometimes it's just about letting go of the weight they left behind. I've let it go. I'm free. And that's what matters. So if you're listening to this and you've been lied to, tricked, betrayed, especially by someone you loved, I want you to know, it's not your fault. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. And healing from it? That makes you powerful. You're not defined by what they did. You're defined by what you do next. And if you're anything like me, I know you're going to turn it into something unbreakable. Because we don't come back from these things as the same people. We come back braver, clearer, and louder. And I think that's beautiful.